Let's move on to Pete Townsend next. I'm just trying to think who we can go through. You obviously worked with him multiple times. Empty Glass album, I think, was the first time. Now
Yeah.
it's very well documented. He was going through a difficult time at this point, wasn't he, with addiction and everything else that was going on with him. That album came out. It was a successful album. It was a good album as well.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Pete around that time then?
Well, it was 1979. I had just come off a European tour with Jeff and Stanley, and I got a call. I think from his office actually, to do a record with him, and so I turned up to Wessex Studios to start recording those songs for Empty Glass. He came in, and he was absolutely, I mean, lovely. Came straight up to me and said, "I'm Pete." I went, "Yeah, I'm Simon. Hello." And he said, "Yeah, I first saw you play on, or I first heard you play on the Gordon Giltrap album, which was I can't remember what that was called, uh, but he had a quite a successful hit. It was on Top of the Pops. I didn't play on the Top of the Pops um, uh, TV show. It might have been Ian Mosley that actually mimed to my parts. I think it was Ian, but I'm not exactly sure. Who, as you know, plays in Marillion. Um, but yeah, that's where he heard me and wanted me to play. And I think it was the first time I worked with producer Chris Thomas. I had worked with Bill Price, the engineer, quite a few times up at Air Studios, so I knew him. And that's how the relationship with Pete started. You never would have known that Pete had any issues at all. He was absolutely lovely. Um, his demos are just stunning.
Okay.
And he played this one particular demo, and I'm in the control room, and I said, "Well, Pete, what do you want us to do? It sounds like it's finished to me." And he said he was very kind of, "Oh yeah, yeah, thank you, but no, we have to recut it, you know." I went, "Oh, okay, off we go." It was amazing, and yeah, we would then work with he'd call me back to do the next album, Chinese Eyes, I think, and so and then all of a sudden, we did the Iron Man project. We were talking, and I said, "Yeah, I'm producing now," and he said, "Come and have a meeting." So I went down to Eel Pie, and we had the most amazing chat. Talk about not really much about records or producing, but about his life and stuff he's going through and stuff like that. So and then we started working on the Iron Man project, which was fabulous. I had a studio all to myself, had a synclavier all to myself, and had to figure out how to work that. It was wonderful working on stuff like that. He'd just leave me to it. And then he'd come in occasionally. "You got anything to play me?" I said, "Yeah, actually, I've got something to play." And I played him it, and he'd say something, and very funny. It was great. I do miss working with Pete. I have to say, his songs are just, they play themselves. I don't do anything. I just hold the sticks. The song plays itself. Beautiful.
And talking about working with Pete, you obviously joined The Who, didn't you, for the reunion tour in 1989? I mean, that's quite a difficult one, I'd have thought, because you're stepping into a band who Keith Moon is probably one of the best known drummers, him and probably John Bonham, the sort of drummers that even your gran knows, even your mum knows, sort of thing. The man on the street knows who those
Yeah.
drummers are. So how was it kind of jumping into, because obviously Kenny Jones had been in the band and out of the band at that point as well when you joined. So how was it kind of joining The Who for that tour?
Well, okay, so and that's one thing it's very important to mention. I was not replacing Keith; I
No.
was replacing Kenny.
Yeah.
Remember Kenny joined that band. I mean, Keith was a good friend of Kenny, and so was John. And I think it was kind of like a yes, of course, Kenny should come in and play. And the first time I saw the Who was actually with Kenny. Pete invited me to the show in London, and I thought it was amazing. I loved it. I loved the way Kenny played. But some people tend to forget. What was it like? Taking over from Keith Moon. I said no, I took over from Kenny, not from Keith.
Yeah.
He must have joined in like must have been 1980. I'm thinking, So when Pete popped the question, my first thing was, "What about Kenny? Does he know about this?" And he said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of that." And I said, "Well, as long as that's cool, then yes, I would love the opportunity." And so that's how that came about. And yeah, of course, it was amazing. Right before then, I had been playing with Mick Jagger, and Jeff Beck recommended me to Mick, and we started recording in 1986 for Primitive Cool. And then we were trying to put together a band in 1987. Jeff was the guitar player, but it was interesting because the four of us, Mick, Jeff, Dougie Wimbush, and myself, it didn't quite work out. Mick wanted two guitar players, and Jeff didn't want to play with another guitar player. And it was fascinating, the rehearsals, actually. So Jeff just eventually bailed. He said, "No, I'm not doing this." So we took a break, and then eventually in 1988, we started touring with Mick, and that meant learning so many songs. It was, I kid you, it was like 60 or 70 songs.
Wow.
It was crazy. Yeah. And then, so we did the touring, and then really after that, it was The Who. And I had to learn even more songs because not only was it the Who catalog or a lot of Who songs, it was Pete's songs, Roger's solo songs,
yeah.
and John's solo songs, plus a couple of blues songs that Roger wanted to do. So it was a lot of rehearsal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was the first show we played, which was in Glens Falls, New York, was 4.5 hours long. We had way too many tunes. So we had to try and take about an hour out of it. So we got it down to 3.5 hours. Those shows were 3.5 hours long. I was like, every night I was exhausted.
I bet.
Yeah, it was great. I was young enough to be able to build up the stamina, and it was I couldn't do it now, but it was amazing. And it was an amazing tour to tour the US, and every night getting between 70 and 90,000 people. Incredible, absolutely incredible.
How do you approach something like that? Because obviously the Who and their songs are very iconic and so well known. I did speak to Kenny about his time in the Who, and he said to Pete, "I'll join the band, but I'm not going to drum like Keith because I can't. I am Kenny. I'll play the way I play." So when you join a band like that, do you obviously there's certain bits you have to do because that's part of the song, but do you approach that from your point of view, or do you approach it trying to do what's been done?
I approach it from the song point of view.
Okay.
I play the song. And I've always done that. I can't copy anybody. I just can't even play like that, I just have to play it the way that I think the song should be, which is the way you hear it on record. You go, yeah, that's the groove. Obviously the groove stays the same. But I'm not going to do, those, and Kenny also, we're not going to do those crazy Keith Moon fills, he was a symphony orchestra all on his own. It was a totally different way of playing. He didn't really play from the groove aspect. He played from the musical top-down aspect, and it was fascinating. There's a couple of drum fills that he did that I kept because I found them. They used to make me laugh. They were so wonderful and so musically joyful and so off the wall. I just went, "Oh, I have to do that," as a little tip of the hat to Keith. Fantastic, absolutely lovely.
Which ones were they? Can you remember?
Oh, there's a fill in the overture of Tommy that I did every night. I just thought, how would you even come up with that? It was brilliant, And a couple of things on the tracks that Kenny recorded too, You Better You Bet. I think I played that track almost identical to the way that Kenny did. It was great. You know, it's what the song needed. And, you know, Kenny also played very much for the song. That's how I felt anyway. When I heard the song, I said, yeah, that's a Pete song. I know Pete's music. I know how he writes, and that's what it needs. Nothing more. And so that's how I have always approached these tunes. You know, when you're in that position of having to replace somebody, but also being in the position of being compared with that somebody,
yeah,
especially by the fans and the public.